Good evening and welcome to the new edition of MCO at Home by Grove Malaysia. And this time we're going to bring you a lot of exciting things, great personalities, towering figures, as well as a little something for all the viewers at the end, which is a template, a guide for everyone to use and practice so that you yourself can survive, can pivot, and make your way towards recovery and eventual success further down the road. All right, soon. So this evening we have a wonderful guest who is a good friend of mine, and he is none other than Mr. Ganesh Kumar. Welcome, Ganesh.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Such an honor to have you here. This young gentleman is currently the executive chairman of Commerce.Asia, and he is the immediate past chairman of PCOM, which is the association that represents the tech and IT industry in Malaysia. He was also the former CEO of MOL Global. Now, that name would sound very familiar with you because MOL Global is the company that bought, if you remember, about a decade or two ago, Friendster, who is the grand or godfather of Facebook today. Well, the owner is this gentleman on the screen here. So welcome again, Ganesh.
Thank you again, Dato.
All right, so you are now no longer with MOL, you're on your own. You came out of an early retirement, answered the call of national service, and now you have Commerce.Asia. As I understand it, Commerce.Asia is not just an IT company. Commerce.Asia is also investment, and it also enables e-commerce to take place. So it's not just a single company that does e-commerce. In fact, you're creating a ecosystem and harnessing and strengthening it. Can you tell us a little bit more about this system that you have built?
Sure. One of the last investments I did while I was in MOL. So in MOL, we did a number of acquisitions. Friendster was one of them, as you rightly pointed out. So we did a few strategic investments. And one of the last investments I did before I left the company, which was subsequently we exited when Razer actually acquired the company, was a company called MOL Pay, which is now Razer FinTech. And MOL Pay actually was at that time a very small company based in Klang, if I remember correctly. And they had a couple of million of volume a month, and we actually invested in that company. And over the last couple of years, it grew tremendously. Actually, over the last 10 years since we invested in it, today I believe it's doing billions in volume already, right? So I realized that e-commerce was going to grow and invested in it. And while I did my IPO roadshow when listing MOL on the NASDAQ, I realized that investors were very excited with the growth of e-commerce. And you know, at that time, we sold the company, or we sold, our story for selling the company was actually being a proxy to the growth of e-commerce in Southeast Asia. And true enough, MOL Pay, which was majority owned by MOL Global, actually truly became the proxy of e-commerce in Southeast Asia. It actually grew while e-commerce growing. And that's the beauty of what I call enabler and merchant-facing businesses. Companies like MOL Pay face merchants and they basically enable merchants to sell. In MOL Pay's case, it was collecting payments. Right now, as I left MOL and I was kind of retired for a while, I still had the interest in e-commerce because of my last investment in MOL Pay, and I realized that there were a lot of other enabling technologies that e-commerce merchants need and could use. So, for example, I realized that there was a company at that time called Shopify, which was actually listed in Canadian Stock Exchange, right? It was trading about $25. It was basically a subscription-based service, mainly subscription-based service at that time, where they charge merchants for actually using a service that enables them to create a web store and sync to multiple marketplaces. And I realized that Shopify at that time was growing, and how they were going to grow was they were going to earn a cut of the transactions by moving into logistics and delivery, into payments as well, and moving into financing, and basically empowering the sellers they had with these different facilities and then earning a cut from it, right? Or earning a cut of the GMV.
When was this? When did this take place?
This was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It was maybe 2016, 2017.
Right.
Right. And so I started looking at basically how I could look for a Shopify of Southeast Asia, and I found a company called Site Giant, a Penang company, which was like Shopify, because what they enable was they enable people to put their product on their platform and sync it to Lazada, Shopee, Presto Mall, and various other international marketplaces, Amazon, eBay, right? So you may say, why can't I go direct? Why do I need to use a Shopify? Because if you go direct, basically you will only be able to manage the inventory on that particular marketplace. You don't have an integrated inventory, right? And
you
got
have to log in and out and check the inventory. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So it's a hassle. If you use our platform, it syncs automatically. And when the order comes in, immediately it deducts it from your back-end centralized inventory, right? So I saw, and it also creates a web store that enables you to have your own front end, which is a lot of e-commerce merchants don't see the importance of that, but it's also important for you to have your own front end as well. Marketplaces are great, they're the best places to sell, but having your own front end could be useful when you want to do your own promotions, whether now or especially in the future, right? So I realized that was an interesting business, and so I talked to the founder and managed to convince him to invest in the business. It was a Penang-based company. It had about 1,000 merchants at that time. I think about 100 million ringgit in gross merchandise volume. That means sales that goes through. But like Shopify was mainly from subscription. Shopify, by the time from trading at $25 in a year, it started trading at $50. I sold Shopify at $50, and today it's at $400.
Wow.
Right, so there's just tremendous amount of growth in the e-commerce sector, and I realized that growth, like Shopify, would come from enablers.
Right.
So I invested in Site Giant.
How has Site Giant been? How has
Site Giant been great. Now has a couple of thousand merchants.
But in terms of number of merchants, how has that grown?
Yeah, so it's grown about 3-4 times over the last 2-3 years.
Right.
So from 1,000 merchants is now 3,000-4,000 merchants. From a GMV of 100 million is now GMV of 800 million. In fact, the whole Commerce.Asia group. So I developed Commerce.Asia. I registered the domain about 4 years ago. I like the domain because it's Commerce.Asia, not e-commerce, because E is given. I registered the domain and then formed the company to then make all its investments. And today I made about 10 investments in e-commerce enablers. Site Giant is one of them, but we've also invested in a warehouse platform. This warehouse platform essentially is integrated to Site Giant and enables Site Giant merchants to put their product in a warehouse. When the order comes, we have somebody that picks, packs, and delivers. Right? We also have a drop shipping platform called HOME2. We have a managed services unit because we realized that brands didn't actually want to hire the people to sell. They just wanted somebody to do it end to end. So we have something called Commerce.Asia Enterprise, which was modeled after eBay Enterprise. So in the early days, eBay had a company called eBay Enterprise, which they subsequently spun off. That was tremendously profitable, and what they did was they actually helped merchants sell online, right? So I basically started Commerce.Asia Enterprise, and over the last couple of months, we've signed many new brands. One of the brands is a wedding brand that we signed up that has grown 300% over the last quarter, actually, just by signing up with us. And so it's been great. Growth has been great. And our annualized GMV now is about 1.6 billion ringgit as a group. And we've got actually about 61,000 merchants that are selling on our various platforms.
And the 61,000 includes the Biz app that you have recently invested in.
Yes, yes. So BZ is a social commerce platform. So what I realized was, and I realized this from China, there's a company called Pinduoduo in China that's also been doing extremely well. And what I learned from that, Pinduoduo is a marketplace, we don't do that, but we enable merchants to sell to rural areas. So we realized that people in rural areas actually are starting to go online, obviously, but they actually buy in a different manner. They may not trust brands as much, or they may not know brands as much, so they don't trust brands as much as they trust their friends. And because of that, there's a huge agent community across the country that actually sells products via Facebook, right? So they sell it to their friends via Facebook, and they buy it from stockists, and their principals like Siti Nurhaliza, Simplicity, is one of BZ's customers. So she basically sells the products to agents through stockists, which are, there's stockists all around the country. But what BZ does is, previously they were manually, that whole ecosystem, its own ecosystem, was actually manually managed. And what I mean by manually managed was that basically they use pen and paper to manage the orders and inventory. Their stockists don't have any automated systems. And so they use WhatsApp a lot, but the WhatsApp is, you get the WhatsApp, then you write on the notebook. So BZAP automates that whole process. And BZAP actually has 200,000 registered agents that sells another 600 million ringgit of GMV.
Right. So, so you seem to have a pretty complete ecosystem. Is there any missing bits that you're still looking for that could complement?
Well, the only thing I haven't invested in, because I've been involved in it before, is payments.
Yeah.
I guess when I started this business, I wanted to do something different. But this is the second, I would say, media or media interview which has asked me, what have you not invested in? So payments is something that could be quite interesting. And payments is something that I haven't had the right opportunity to invest. Is natural. I've got experience in it. So it's natural for me to look at it. Either we make an investment, we acquire, or we could potentially partner with a group of people, form a team of people to do it. I am quite busy managing these 10 companies, so I'm not looking at it yet. But it could be something I look at in the near future.
It's just natural. But you know, your growth has been tremendous. You know, organic, through acquisitions and things like that. Do you have enough firepower, you know, to fuel your growth? You know, because at one point you were you hit the record for being the highest or the largest fundraiser on the ECF platform before. Can you? So what's your strategy?
Yeah, so I think there are a few things. Of course, to make more investments, I've been personally funding the company today. Beside the Malaysian Book of Records, that was 2 years ago, the equity crowdfunding round that we did. I've also been actually investing further in the company, and I'm actually committed now to another round, committing to another round of funding that the company is doing. So I think for most of our investments today, we have enough firepower or dry powder, as most people call it. Of course, if we make more investments, we may need to raise some external capital. But I think what's important as we move into e-commerce is, although a lot of people say, you know, for startups, you don't have to be profitable. I don't think that's fully true. It's fine if you have growth, but being profitable is also key. About half of our companies are profitable, and most of our companies, including the startups, will be profitable. I think about 80–90% of the companies will be profitable in the next few quarters, right? So our real focus is actually to consolidate this year. We may not do any other investments and reach profitability as a group. We're confident of doing it. Many of our earlier investments are already profitable. For example, Site Giants already profitable. We invested or we acquired a SME database, a big data business called Pen Pages, which we have rebranded as Commerce.Asia data. That's profitable. So we have profitable businesses that would also help us in terms of reaching profitability. and our startups are also reaching profitability in the next few quarters.
Great. I love that you mentioned the word profitability. So you can have profitability on paper, and you need to have profitability in terms of cash as well, especially, you know, now that we have this COVID-19 pandemic and the MCO. How has it affected business generally on your end?
So generally, actually, business, I wouldn't say has grown. We do see a 5, 10, maybe 20% growth in some areas of business.
There is still growth, because
there is still growth.
Times like that, when we are at home, we are forced to, you know,
yeah, you're forced to buy online. People would think that your growth is 30, 40, 50% because people can't go and buy outside. But it's not that high, because I think people are spending less.
Right. So tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly of e-commerce right now during this.
The good. So I think the good is, it's quite, I mean, in the COVID situation, for example, we are sustaining, so we're actually growing in terms of GMVs. So our subscription-based businesses are also stable. Of course, for businesses that merchants actually are actually wanting to sign up more. So for example, this month we may have the record month in terms of signing up number of merchants for our for some of our businesses. So it's actually growing. Of course, I think that's the good in the COVID situation. The bad is sometimes fulfilling demand becomes a bit of a challenge. Getting the people to run the warehouse, the same challenges that Amazon is running, is another challenge. So most of our businesses are considered essential services, which is great because we're e-commerce. One of our businesses, somehow, even though they're in e-commerce, is not considered essential service. So even though they have a demand, they may not be able to meet that demand, right? So that's a bit of the slightly bad, but you know, we are coping, and maybe in terms of manpower and resource with COVID, it may be slightly more difficult. But of course, with the family that we have, we actually kind of are able to help each other and grow together, which is great because we have an ecosystem that can actually feed off each other, that can help each other. If you are an entrepreneur on your own, you're facing the current COVID crisis alone at home. We have senior leadership team meetings every week to find out how each other is doing. So that actually supports each other. We ask how each other is doing over a WhatsApp group, which actually creates that community among our ecosystem of enablers as well.
What about the ugly side of it?
I did mention the ugly. I think the ugly right now is when it comes to warehousing, when it comes to fulfillment, when it comes to basically fulfilling demand, because of the restrictions faced, whether it's the MITI restrictions that are quite vague when it comes to e-commerce essential services, or whether it's the fact that people may or may not want to come to work as much, right? We can't use foreign workers, of course, legal foreign workers as much. We have to use locals. Some of the locals may not perform as good as the foreign workers somehow. At least that's what my people tell me, right? But overall, so I think the ugly is more on the back end, more on the warehouse side.
Right, right. How is the you know, the brand owners or the merchant retailer take up on e-commerce like?
Actually, couple of weeks, I would say, right? Now, why I say that is a few reasons. We're actually seeing increased inquiries, and people are more hungry, because before the retailers had physical outlets, we were generating them sales. The online business may be generating 1-2% of sales for them, and the offline business generates them 95% of sales. But today the offline business is 0, so the online business is actually 100%. Right? So of course, people are selling on TV commerce as well. Yeah. So because of that, they're seeing demand. They want to now get online. They need support, and that's where we come in. So if you're a merchant or you're an SME and you find it difficult to hire the person today to actually help you sell online, the first thing you think about is managed service, and we are there to actually support the merchant.
Right, and then you have got the thousands of agents, 61,000 merchants who could be potentially out there, you know,
Yes.
rallying the cry for you. Okay.
Yes,
now,
but to be fair, Dato, to be fair, the sales today is coming from urban e-commerce. Right? In the sales during COVID are not coming from the agents as much, because the agents are still have an offline component.
Right.
It's coming really from what I call urban e-commerce, which is actually the marketplaces and the web stores.
Okay. Say if I am a traditional retailer at ground zero, you know, at kindergarten level, and I'm affected by this movement control, right? So my physical stores are shut, and I say, I want to get online. How long does it take for me to make that jump from zero to getting my first customer?
So I would say between 2 weeks to a month.
2 weeks to a month.
Yeah.
So,
but that's considering that's everything end to end, putting your products in a warehouse, taking pictures, right? Everything end to end. You could do it in a week if it's one product, for example, but it is like 500 products which normal brands have, and you actually need to get the products to where you're actually getting, considering the current demand. I would say 1 to 2 weeks to a month, maybe.
So did you see a spike? Obviously, you mentioned there is a spike. Can we know?
Yes, we are seeing increased demand and inquiry. Yeah.
So okay. Now
and also sign ups actually. Yeah.
Right. So how else do you see Commerce.Asia doing? You seem to be, you have the ecosystem. But sometimes in a closed ecosystem, you happen to be insulated. You might not have access to the best. You mentioned earlier that you still have not have a wallet play, right? So you still need to go outside.
Payment play, yeah.
Yeah. So what's your advantage? Who is your closest competitor in Malaysia or even in this region?
Sure, we don't have a competitor per se as an ecosystem. We do have competitors, for example, for managed services business. Let me first address the first question you brought in, Dato. So the first question that you asked me was, you're a closed ecosystem. It's not true. We're not a closed ecosystem, right? We are a family of companies. I use the word family twice. But just because we're family of companies doesn't mean that the individuals in the family don't have their own friends as well. They have their own friends, but of course they give maybe some preferential treatments to their brothers and sisters as what you would do to your own family members, right? So for example, Site Giant, our e-commerce platform. So one of the other platforms we have in our group is a joint venture we did with a Thai company to handle shipping. So we link to all the delivery providers, and when order comes in, we basically work with Post Laju and all these delivery providers to deliver the items, right? So when it comes to shipping, Site Giant works with Easy Parcel, which is the kind of the competitor to Shipop, right? And Easy Parcel, of course, is integrated to Site Giant, right? And Site Giant, for example, we talk about payment. iPay is integrated to Site Giant, MorePay is integrated to Site Giant, or Reserve Fintech is integrated to Site Giant. And so Site Giant is an open platform that works with everybody and will continue to work with everybody, right? So we're not a closed ecosystem, we're like Apple, right? So if you have Apple, you can still use third-party devices on Apple. Of course, if you happen to use the Apple earphone as compared to a Xiaomi earphone, the Apple earphone will sound better when using it with an Apple device. Right. So we are an open system. Our independent companies are open, but of course, if you work together if you come to work and use all parts of the ecosystem, you will actually get a much higher level of service because they're better integrated as well. Right.
Okay. You are obviously. Thank you so much for that explanation. Now, moving on to the next question. You have built ecosystems in Malaysia, and with your acquisition of Pen Pages, now you call it Commerce.Asia data. You have got data of not only businesses, SMEs in Malaysia, you have also expanded into other countries within the region. So can you give us a comparative analysis between e-commerce growth in Malaysia and our neighboring economies and countries? How do they compare in the light of the COVID pandemic that we experience today?
Sure, I do not have the data for the other countries when it comes to e-commerce during COVID at this point, but maybe I can share a bit with you the difference between the different countries.
Yeah.
So I believe that, for example, Thailand, from my experience in working with Thailand, Thailand is a very more mature market actually than Malaysia. They actually have a very rich set of enablers. In fact, much more than us, and they're very innovative. So their enabling ecosystem is actually a lot more innovative than us. Although they may not have an ecosystem like Commerce.Asia, but they're a lot more innovative. And I think at this point, they're still a bigger market than Malaysia. They happen to learn faster as well. So if you have a new product, tendency is that is more sexy, I would say, for people to buy, or more attractive for people to buy, unique. Thailand would actually get you the most sales earlier than Malaysia.
Huge early
Malaysia will be more
market.
convincing. Yeah, it's easier to convince Thais. They're not as attuned to a brand as much. Malaysia, we're used to a brand and we're comfortable. We may not trust a competitive brand as easily as the Thais do.
Right. So,
right,
a strategy for Malaysian brand owners, rather than just focusing on the local market, that they should actually explore cross-border e-commerce.
Yes, I think they should definitely explore. Of course, in the current COVID crisis, that may be slightly challenging because I believe there are restrictions when it comes to cross-border as well. So I believe, and there's some other, I would say, hindrances to cross-border commerce that people don't talk about. Everybody talks about cross-border commerce and says it's the future. I totally agree it's the future, but there's still many hindrances.
And what are those hindrances?
So some of the hindrances, ex-China, right? China has solved a lot of those hindrances. But you talk about selling in Southeast Asia, logistic costs still a hindrance.
Right.
Time to deliver, clearing customs is still a hindrance. And of course, when it comes to now in the COVID crisis, you don't know whether your product is going to reach that country or not, right? So there's still a number of hindrances there. Some because of COVID, some just because cross-border commerce hasn't reached the volume that it's reached yet.
Right.
There will be a point it reaches inflection point. Like if you look at China, Malaysia, that has reached inflection point, right?
Right.
China is selling to Malaysia because everybody does it and the volumes are so high, your logistic costs have dropped and the clearing and whatnot has become a lot easier, right? But in other countries, for example, Indonesia, that's a huge market and that's going to be the biggest market. I think the numbers were something like it's going to be a $40–50 billion e-commerce market, the fastest growing, to be largest e-commerce market in Southeast Asia. Now, we are not ready for cross-border commerce to Indonesia yet. I know there are a lot of initiatives working on it. Just today, I had a call on an Indonesian initiative, but there's still hindrances. And I think it's good to try, but I would say the time, in e-commerce, and I've seen this time and time again, if you started an e-commerce business in 2000, it would take you until 2008 before you actually see traction and started to grow, right? And then it would take you until 2013 or 2014 for you to actually make money, for example, right? And then a competitor, a competitor comes in 2010, 10 years or 8–9 years after you started, and then enters into your market, just spends a bit more money than you and becomes bigger than you. Right. Whereas you have actually built the market for 8–9 years. Same thing with cross-border. Cross-border commerce right now is the initial stages of e-commerce. Your graph goes like that and then it goes like that, right? Yeah. So you don't really have to join at this early stage. In fact, when you join at this early stage, you'll be burning money for a couple of years. Right. You just have to join before the inflection point.
Right. So
Right?
these are all problems associated with, I think, developing. You're fast growing, but nevertheless, there's still a kind of a U-shaped curve, and you don't want to be caught,
Yes.
before the inflection
Yes.
point. But
So
you mentioned, you mentioned.
So the U-shaped curve for cross-border regional e-commerce, that means within Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, hasn't arrived yet. I believe it will take another two years maybe for it to arrive, right? And of course, it's something we're also looking at, obviously, which is why we made the Pen Pages acquisition, because that gives us a database of SMEs, a database of 8 million SMEs across Southeast Asia that enables us to tap on. So of course, it's something that we're looking at, something actually we're right now in the process of doing. And I think it's something that merchants should look at. Once they have kind of solidified their Malaysian presence, then they should look at the regional presence. I would say the next one, we're already doing it now. The next few quarters, we will be promoting it more. And I would say next 1-2 years, you start seeing it grow.
Right. Thank you. Have you put your foot into China? You were talking about China being matured. Have they reached that inflection point?
You know, even in MOL, I invested across all emerging markets except for China. I invested in Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Thailand, Turkey, Vietnam, US, Brazil, but I didn't invest in China.
Yeah.
I did all the West. I did the whole ring belt of developed markets, but I did not do China. Now, why didn't I do China? Because it's its own world. China is its own world. I know a lot of companies, they have invested there and burned their money investing into China because there's a lot of capital there. And if you don't, there's a lot of risk capital there, not just growth capital. So risk capital means people will pump money into their own business, 5, 10, 20 million just based on the potential of making money, right? And I don't think we need to do that. I'm not prepared to do that. I tend to be a bit more safe with my investments, I would say, right? And I don't make bets. I make calculated risk. So investing in internet in China to me is betting.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Get back to Malaysia. Right now, we are in the midst of this pandemic. There are signs of a flattening of the curve, despite the ebbs and spikes, daily ebbs and spikes we see. But people say, as we come out of this COVID, there's going to be a post-COVID new normal. So how would your investment appetite change? What opportunities do you see as an investor in the new normal, as we come out of COVID, as we try to get our footing and stabilize ourselves? And when do you think that inflection, whether it's a V or a U, will take place?
That's a $1 billion question.
Yeah.
I watched Bloomberg West every day. I was just watching Bloomberg West earlier. And Meg Whitman, the former CEO of eBay, was on, and she thinks it's going to be a V-shaped inflection curve, right? If it's a V-shaped inflection curve, it could be
the best case scenario.
We see it going back up. The stock markets actually have been doing not bad. They've actually recovered maybe 20%. They were down 30-40%. Now they've recovered. They may be down 10-20% maybe, and they're getting better. But I still think that this is what we're facing today is something we've not faced before. So I would still be a bit more conservative. I would look at investments. I will potentially look at investments if the deal is right. But a good investor will invest whether it's bad time or good time, right? Because whether in bad times or good times, e-commerce is going to grow. And if you have the right strategy of investing and you have the conviction that what you're doing is right, it doesn't matter bad or good times, you will still survive.
That's great. So you will survive as an investor, but what about the e-commerce enablers, the players, in this system, these startup companies, what's in it for them? Are they struggling? Because they seem to have not been mentioned in the economic stimulus package that was announced by our Prime Minister. And when he had the enhanced package, there was no mention of startups. There were the SMEs, there were the makcik kiosks, right? Where's the place of the startups in all this? And then last week, we saw MDEC launching alternative financing and funding that the banks couldn't do in equity crowdfunding and P2P lending. What is your view?
Okay, I think there are a few things that I have my view on it. First of all, the e-commerce enablers that have sufficient cash flow and are profitable or not dependent on investor money to sustain their operations will survive. Because the business is actually not affected, right? If e-commerce is growing 5%, even if e-commerce is stagnant, or even it goes down 5-10%, they'll still be able to survive, right? And e-commerce, based on the numbers I looked at, based on my ecosystem numbers, I think it's actually growing maybe 5%.
Right. But you can't call those startups because they are stable already.
Yeah, so so what I'm saying is operationally these startups will be doing better than before. Yeah. E-commerce enablers or even e-commerce merchants be doing better than before. Now that's the plus. The minus point is actually those that are dependent on investor money, those that are bleeding, those that have 6 months of cash left in the bank and are looking at doing the next round of funding while being loss-making. Those are the ones that will find it difficult to raise money, and by that virtue will find it difficult to survive. Right? So I think the ones that will, if you're raising money in today's environment and you're dependent on outside money to sustain your operations, then that's not a good position to be in.
So do you think the initiative by MDEC, how is that going to make a difference?
So yeah, okay, talking about government initiatives, actually our Prime Minister did have a sentence on startups. He says they're looking at initiatives, and I believe YB KJ is working as they engage with startups.
That's right, there was a meeting you were involved in as well.
Yeah, I was not in that meeting, but I saw that meeting. Yeah, so I believe they actually are looking at startups, and I hope an announcement will be made in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
PCOM, where I chaired the think tank of PCOM, called PCOM Future Digital, actually said that we need to have our startups. If we don't have our startups, 40% of startups will die.
Correct.
Right? Those are magic numbers as well.
And so, it's this startup that's fueling the innovation, that's driving the SMEs and the country's business through.
Yeah, but you see, a lot of startups were spoiled by cheap money, I call it. They were spoiled because money came too easy. The good thing about it is when money becomes more difficult, that's when real innovation happens. Hey, Uber, Airbnb all started during the last crisis in the US. Right? So I believe, it's good that it's quite natural for startups to die, but it's unnatural because this was unforeseen circumstances. When startups plan and they don't achieve their plans, then things are not met, right? Now, to talk about the equity crowdfunding by MDEC, I saw the announcement, but to be honest, there's not enough clarity on the announcement because, to be fair, equity crowdfunding has been around for quite a long time. Those 6, 7 license providers have been around for at least a year. Some of them have been around for 5 years. The government has already put in I think it was up to 1 million per company. So if you put in $1, in an ECF company, the government will actually come and match it, I think 1 to 3. So for every $3, the government put in $1, and they've actually improved that ratio in light of the current COVID crisis, right? So I think a lot of these incentives, ECF has been around for 5 years. people are already investing. Whether people continue to invest is another, because people may have their own headaches now. The last thing they'll be thinking is investing in a high-risk startup, right? When Maybank is trading at 7 ringgit, giving you an 8-9% dividend yield, why invest in a startup that doesn't give you any dividends, right? Right? So returns from Maybank may be better, maybe much better than investing in a startup. So whether people are going to be investing in ECF today is a question mark. And the value add that MDEC is providing is also not clear in that press release. They may have some ideas, but we don't know what that is right now. So we'll appreciate more clarity, I think, from the government agencies on what they're actually doing. I think it's been a bit too abstract right now. It's a bit too high level. So maybe they have got plans that they're not prepared to disclose, but we hope that they'll disclose more plans so that we as the industry can also come in and participate, or maybe even support them, right? Maybe, you know, I've never invested in an equity crowdfunding company for various reasons. Maybe MDEC can create some incentive that would help us to invest, sure, but we need to know what that is. I think we need to move forward. You know, one of the dangers, not just in this case, one of the dangers that I see that even the private sector is doing today is actually we're just out there to make announcements today. Because we've got nothing better to do, we're not working as much, we're actually busy making press releases more than actually doing work, right? So I think that has to change. We still have to work, we have to work from home, and we have to focus on fundamentals, because when we get out of this crisis, the people that are going to grow, the people that are going to succeed are the ones with fundamentals.
Right. So what is your advice for a person who is a founder of a startup? He, you know, obviously is still looking for new funding. What is your advice to him? You know, should he continue? Should he fold? You know, he's facing this challenge. He's burning money. What would your advice be to him?
I think the founders today have to focus on sustainability. They have to focus on getting to break even as soon as possible. Now, some companies may look at raising funding. I know some companies that I'm looking at also is looking at raising funding, which it may or may not be a bad time, because people see the potential of e-commerce today. So actually maybe a good time to be raising money, because people now see that as a core and may actually invest in this situation if you have a good enough story. But if you couldn't raise money in good times, which is what's happening to a lot of startups, you're not going to be able to raise money in bad times. Right? So today it's all about sustainability. You know, Meg Whitman on TV, she just started her own startup that does online video, right? And she's also talking about sustainability. She's talking about revenue more than cost. That's her exact own words. She doesn't believe in businesses where the cost is more than revenue, right? So our startup need to change the mindset. Take this opportunity as a mindset to change that. Look, startups have to move towards self-sustainability as soon as possible. So if before you put 60% weightage on growth and 40% on sustainability or profitability, today it has to be 70-30. 30 on growth, 70 on profitability.
Yeah, I think one of the lessons that this COVID-19 has taught us is to step back beyond the heady days, you know, and focus on what works. You mentioned two words that rang out. One is focus on your fundamentals. It's actually business as a business. And number two, you've got to sustain yourself until the next inflection.
To get to the other side, right?
Right.
Today, the issue is if you can get to the other side, you're okay, because your competitors who don't get to the other side, you will be able to capture their customers.
But the issue now is the other side. That chasm has grown wider. So that's the challenge. So you deserve it if you can plan your way to cross to the other side. Now, before we part, you know, on it, do you have any last parting words for anyone out there? It could be the investing public, the startups, the merchants. what is your advice to them, in order to sustain and survive through this period until, as you mentioned, the inflection, the time where we recover?
I believe the biggest challenge that we are all facing today as we work from home in this situation is we're not able to control our mind. Our mind is actually causing a lot of the issues that we are facing today, right? So we stay at home, we worry about what's happening outside. Nothing's happening outside, just that we all have to stay at home so that we don't get hit by the virus. Whatever you could do before, you can actually do from your home today because of technology. So it's very important for us to use our intellect to control our mind and basically innovate and use that innovation to actually take us to the future. So in a crisis like this, and in fact in all times, I think if you control your mind, you actually control the world.
And those are really, really wise parting words indeed. Thank you so much. And ladies and gentlemen, we have with us tonight the very, very respected personality, Mr. Ganesh Kumar Banga, Executive Chairman of Commerce.Asia. Ganesh, once again, thank you for the time. It's been wonderful sharing and engaging with you over the past almost an hour. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dato'. Thanks.
Yes, bye-bye.